less of the doing directly, but engage with private sector to implement some of the concepts we come with. Nice to hear one of our panelists also mentioned that she did number of engagements with government. So that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to, I believe we need to do more. So I know a number of times I see maybe programs happening and things like that. And I reach out to private sector, or if I have maybe contacts with them and say, oh, have you sent it to this? Have you sent it to that? And most of the time we find out that there's no interest. So we private sector, or let's say the ecosystem, needs to reach out. So when we even say the ecosystem, most of the time we just narrow it down to private sector. But really the ecosystem is everybody. It's every key stakeholder. Government is also part of the ecosystem. So reaching out to government, if the private sector can just give government some credit and try to trust until, until proven otherwise. And also, we're in a country that is democratic, and we have administrative changes, which is similar to many other countries with the same kind of climb. But we just push away from that. And then government too, I think it's a two-sided thing. Government too needs to reach out to the private sector. So there's a lot of disconnect. The private sector feels government does things in silo. They are not involved. So they feel most of, for example, the policies that we come up with, we're not engaging with them. Actually, we do engage. In every program or concept that comes out, there's a lot of stakeholder engagements, identified, looking at different sectors within the country and things like that. But when we reach out, most people don't attend these meetings and they come to give feedback. But really, if we don't work together, it will be very difficult for us to make progress. And if, for example, you attend 10 government sessions and you are only able to make input into one and it was really adopted, I think it still makes a huge difference. So I think if we can reach out more and communicate better, and we also as government needs to create more trust for the ecosystem, for the private sector to really see, and other stakeholders to really see that when we mean business, we deliver. Maybe, we deliver as much as we can, and we should also work together. So basically for me, I think there's a lot of disconnect, and I feel private sector, government, all key players need to reach out. So whether sometimes you see things and you've not, maybe for example, you feel government has not reached out to you, you can easily reach out and, give your own input. And a lot of this has happened. Recent controversies and all that, I don't want to go into all that, but there are quite some players out there that would reach out and say, oh, okay, we have looked at this and this is what we think should happen, and we have put up a write-up, can you look at it, or can we be part of this? And some people have even come forth. So more of those needs to happen, because most of these things that government is doing is for the general public. And they don't, I would say they don't even know about it. They don't even go out to really question and find out what it is and engage in that. So yes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Amina. Baba, I see you smiling. You want to say something, Baba? I see you smiling.
I know you're coming back with another question as a follow-up.
Say something, Baba, about this.
Yeah. So the way I see it, right, I think that the average Nigerian sees, the average Nigerian is their government. I've heard this said a lot, in the sense that, for most people, we create our own water, we boil water, you create your lights, you have generators, So the average Nigerian is basically the one that does everything. And that includes business. Many of the successes that we've seen from the IT sector is some young people doing a lot of work, a whole lot of work, and then they become successful. Then when success comes, and I think one of the newspapers announced that IT is now the new oil, then suddenly we start seeing policies flying around, and many of them are restrictive and they actually kill innovation. We need to understand that, first off, in Nigeria, a lot of experiences that we've had with government have not been very encouraging. From the business, for those who run business, many people are always trying to go around the difficulty of doing business. The indices show that Nigeria is not a very business-friendly place from some statistics, because some of the policies put in place make things difficult. And then what now makes things more complicated is that then we have more policies. It almost seems like once there's innovation, then there's something that government introduces to make it more difficult. That may not be the intention, but that is what everybody sees. That's what everybody feels. Okay. I won't want to mention a number of things that have happened recently, but there have been a lot of attack on the IT ecosystem that is not healthy. And regarding engagement with stakeholders, well, I don't know the stakeholders that government engage with, but some of the very, very big players are unaware of some of these engagements. I'm sure they would jump at the opportunity to be involved in the discussions, but then we hear nothing until when it's almost too late. And of course, naturally, what happens is that, like I said, these people actually created these things out of nothing. These innovations came out of people who worked for many years. And when you see that you are threatened or your business is threatened, then what do? You go to protective measures, start taking protective measures, which may also include, seeing the government as, they want to pour sand in your garri, like some people say. I do think that government needs to really work closer because definitely the growth in the sector has been due to a lot of work from both private and public. And I think that we need to get to a point where this is seen as a joint effort to grow the ecosystem. There are a lot of bad actors, understandably, and understandably, the government is trying to ensure that we protect the interest of all. But I'd like to give an illustration that I heard once on a radio program that was quite insightful. The person gave a story of, according to him, what happened in the case of GT Bank many years ago. In those days, banks had a lot of fences, a lot of walls, a lot of gates. And when you go to see the cashier, you see that there's this transparent glass, sometimes even with burglary and all that. And the reason why banks did all that was because, of course, you can be robbed, okay? You understand? So you have to protect yourself, protect the money, okay? But GTB's MD then said that, okay, from the large number of customers that we have and from statistics, what's the percentage of those customers that will eventually ever rob us? And I think the percentage was 1% or less. And so he said something. So because of 1% of people, we are creating a structure where people come to a bank and all they see is, no connection. They just see walls, they see gates. He said, no, break down the walls, break down the fences, open up the doors, let the customer see your face. That was a risky thing to do, and people thought it was crazy. But then in the early days, GTB was the only bank where you would drive and you see no fence. It was crazy because what we're all thinking about is that they will rob you, But guess what? What that did is that it opened up people's engagement with the bank. And I think that's the way government should see. The easiest thing to think about is to ban things and to come up with policies to, protect. We're trying to protect. But when you do that, you also block innovation, okay? And I think that I'm hoping that we'll get to a point where we understand that we can't, because of 1% or 2% of the population, come up with policies that will affect the entire nation and, people in that industry. And I think I've gone round in circle to answer that question, CF. Thank you.
But it's fine, you answered it. And I saw you smiling, but, I also want to get already, because you see, if we get this issue and bridge this gap between government policy and how government sees the ecosystem and how the ecosystem sees government, I think we'll build a better, deeper internet society, internet community, more productive, more profitable. So for example, government doesn't know that right now, a lot of people who are building startups are taking it offshore, right? Because they feel that, it's not supposed to keep our money and, and somebody writes some policy to take our dollars. Let's keep our dollars offshore and bring it in little tranches. So let me also ask Ore, in your work, I know you mentioned that, right? How, I want you to just contribute to this particular issue. Like, how do you think we can bridge this particular gap between, I'll come back. You want to respond to what Toba said? Okay. Yeah, okay. So, all right, how do you think we can bridge this gap and ensure we build a more viral ecosystem, and create more synergy?
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, I was really agreeing with a lot of what Toba was saying. We have worked with, we've worked with governments in the past, and it was usually as a result of maybe connections, or I should say people who we knew and who knew our work and reaching out to us. So they always say, oh, networking is very important. But the times that we have tried to reach out with the project that we had, it was really difficult. So saying that, that if we have an idea, we should reach out, which is good. And, when Twitter was around, that was one way that, you could have some sort of access. But the access is not really easy unless you have already developed, and nurtured those relationships, and they happen to know and value your work. So I think that definitely there's a lot of trust that is not there on both sides. On the, especially civil society has really faced a lot of restrictions from, potential policies or bills that have been tried to put in place. And I think, which is really difficult, because what Toba said was very important. For the 1% who are bad actors, who have bad intentions, it's not necessary to censure everyone else. I can speak about the civil society. Most of the people I know who are working in this space are doing it out of the passion that they have to make a better society. So it's very important that we are able to have that, number one, that trust that, our governments and government agencies, also see us as collaborators and partners together, so that we can work together. As we already established from the first question, change is not something that one actor, or sector can do on their own. It requires all of us to be working together. And so it's important to make sure that, the policies that are there are creating an environment, an ecosystem that is easy to work in, that we can get things done quickly, and we know that we can trust. We can trust, what the government says. We're talking about internet, for all, but there are parts of the country right now that have had their internet, shut down. They've had their data services shut down because of security issues, and our honorable minister said that, he acknowledges that internet is really important to be able to curb issues of insecurity. So sometimes it feels that there are contradictory things being said, and it does not gel, and it does not harmonize. You cannot say on one hand that internet is important for curbing insecurity, but at the same time denying people of that. And even in terms of access to the tools that, let's talk about Twitter, for instance. I mean, we still have a ban. So I think that, there's a lot of the right things being said, but in terms of actually seeing the right things being done, there's definitely a disconnect there. So I would say, there are lots of policies. We tend to have a lot of really good policies, but I think, definitely we need to have a bit more engagement. Some of the things I read about them online, and, I'm not maybe able to be like part of the group that is contributing, to the shaping of these policies. So I think that we need to be, we need to have our voices heard a bit more. And what we can do on social media is great, but actually having freer access, I think that's important. And to actually have the policies that are supporting the growth of, the entire ecosystem, and realizing that the ecosystem is made up of the private, civil society, and the government as well. And to realize that, to say the things which are not to say one thing and then basically your actions are doing another thing. So yeah, thank you.
Dr. Amina, you want to say something? You want to react?
No, a little bit just to add to that. So it's very difficult when you. It's very difficult when you're in government and you're in a position where, you know, okay, where you sit in government and you have your own opinion about how things should be, and also there's a bigger picture, you know, within the country of how things happen. So I'll keep that bit as it is. But when I was speaking, I mentioned a lot about communication between the private sector and government. Something I forgot to mention, and I think it's a very key setback for the ecosystem, is communication within government organizations. So, for example, we know technology is an enabler, and we know technology works across all sectors. So when policies, for example, come out within the country, well, we have Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy as our ministry, but then also we have sectoral ministries as well too. So when for example, policy comes out from the financial sector, I don't necessarily think there's enough communication or some sort of handshake between the ministries themselves. Yes, I know the problem of implementation is very slow, and that also exists, but the conversations between the different sectors, the communication I think, can be improved, because when there's also this thing about taking credit within the government. So every sector wants to kind of take credit for what they've done. So once within that credit, they feel you can come up with your own policies for your sector. So the financial sector can do that, the educational sector can do that, the health sector can also come up with their own whatever. I think there's maybe, I've always looked at it that there might be more, there's maybe we need to more strategically position or restructure or communicate better within the sector, so that it's clear that IT is an enabler, and not only that government should communicate with the private sector, but even within government, there's a lot of silos, even within a particular ministry with its different MDAs. So that was the part that I forgot, and I don't think we really addressed that, but that really, really exists. So some of the things that just come out there, most of the time, the other people, the other sectors just see it online as well. So you had no opportunity to contribute in one way or another, or maybe being the technology sector, you might have more, you could have insights that could support the policy to make it more enabling.
Awesome, Doc. For those of us who know, your first statement rings a bell. For those of us who know you quite well, so we understand. We understand. All right, so let me just jump to another side of this conversation. You know, around capacity building and you know, for kids and elderly people around cybersecurity. And I think I'll take that to Oreoluwa. Oreoluwa, you know, cybercrime is a reality, you know, all kinds of stuff happening. You know, I know that Benga session will say to you that, you know, don't blame the technology, you know, blame the people. But how do we draw a balance? Because, you know, kids have to go online, but then parents tend to wonder how, I mean, from my experience, right, hosting Tech on Channels Television, right, when I do research and I see what kids do, parents have no clue what kids do, you know. So yes, don't blame the tool, you know, but then how to draw the balance? Because, you know, that reality is there, and that is something that inhibits a lot of parents from freely allowing their words to, you know, access internet. And so, over to you, your thoughts.
All right. So education and awareness is key.
Yep.
So one of the things we do is we run a camp, and I think you visited our camp before for teenage girls, essentially girls in secondary school. And back in the day, I mean, we were teaching the girls how to create email addresses and go online and do searches on Google. And one of the girls who was in attendance said, that, this is fantastic, because at home, her father will not let her use the internet because, he believes there's a lot of bad people and bad information out there. So by the time she gets home, all the things she has learned, she won't be able to practice it, at least at home. She'll have to do it either, some neighbor's house or school, if they have computers there. And that therein lies the problem. Yes, young people they're online, they're playing with gadgets, and they're learning. Children learn through play and young people learn through play. So as they're playing, they're learning. As adults, sometimes our own concept of learning is very different. I get someone to teach me, and it's kind of a hangover from, how things were, the concept of education as we were growing up. You go to school or someone teaches you something. So there are a lot of adults who have really stopped learning. And with technology, it's a lifelong thing. You keep learning. And so the parents definitely are being left behind. And so for a lot of parents, their own measure is to say, no, you can't use this. You can't use the internet. You can't go on YouTube. You can't do this. But I mean, the thing is, the internet is all around us. So if, your child is not going online at home, they'll be going online somewhere else. So I think rather parents need to get educated. They need to understand technology, even if it's to ask their children to show them, like, what is it that you're doing? Show me, so that they have a better understanding. And with a better understanding, they're also better able to guide. And that guidance is really important, because rules and regulations don't necessarily work with children or work with anybody really, because, like I said, you go out and you can do whatever you want to do. It's better to engage your children by talking to them, talking about what's out there. And a lot of parents will find out that their children know about all these things, porn, maybe they've even seen porn themselves, cyberbullying, harassment, scams, phishing scams. Children usually know about these things. So it's more beneficial to talk to them about it, talk to them, see what they think, share your own thoughts, have that discourse with them. And through that discourse, really try to shape the way that they think and they view, a lot of these things that happen. Sometimes, some young people may think, misguidedly, well, oh, it's hard to find jobs. So if I can get money through 419, why not? It's every man, woman for themselves. That's a misguided way of thinking. But as a parent, you're able to shape and, guide your children through discussion. But you can only do that with, I think, an open exchange. You talk, you learn, you make the efforts to learn about, these technologies. And then you also, ask your children to teach you. My 6-year-old daughter is teaching me things. And I feel like, oh yeah, I'm the one who knows about tech, but she's teaching me things too. And you have to be open to that. So yeah, I think that's very, very key for parents in today's world.
Well, I mean, so that's really tells us that we need to find a way to draw a balance. Like you said, the internet is all over this game. And honestly, if our kids must compete with their counterparts abroad, we really have this or no choice. But Thomas, let me also, get your take on this issue of, cybercrime, phishing, as it affects the digital economy we're trying to build. What is your take on trying to find a balance, and trying to get more people to use their time and their experience productively? Because sometimes, when I look at even though I don't subscribe to scam and all the other things, right? But for me, it's how do we get these guys to turn that energy productively? But your take.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. I read an excerpt of an interview session with this guy, Obi, I can't remember, it's Victor's, right? The guy that, was such a very influential young man who was doing great things, and we found out he was a scammer behind the scenes. And, in the interview, he talked about how he started. And how did he start? He went to visit someone. He saw the person's beautiful house, cars, and like there's a person that, oh my God, how are you doing this? And the person showed him, how he started, buying stolen bank logins and all. And he tried it and it worked for him. And guess what? He started making money. I think the first problem is our value systems. Okay. I think our value systems are highly eroded. And I think probably because all around us, we see people who still being celebrated, okay? So think about it, right? Which kind of show would people watch today? Big Brother Nigeria, or maybe an academic show about children, showing their brains and the likes, okay? You see that people don't care about education anymore. People don't care about hard work. You see, celebrities, footballers making billions of dollars, and you want to just tomorrow make your own kind of money quickly, Nobody wants to suffer anymore. So I think our values are actually the problem. So technology is just an enabler of anything, okay? So once we don't fix that problem, then there's nothing we can really do. So I think our problem is that, people have been scamming even before technology was available. People scam and will continue to scam. Technology just made it easier. So the values are the problem. I think that first, when we look all around us, we see people get away with the worst of things. We know the story of Hush Puppy, and I was, displaying so much wealth, and people just wanted to be like him. And I wonder that, don't you wonder how he's making this money? They don't care. They want to live the life. People are tired of suffering, and the people who do the hard work, it takes time. People don't have time for time. People want to make money now. That is the problem. I remember that when I was growing up, there was this popular Yoruba song that talked about, working hard. Those were the values that we grew up with. But I guess the problem is that we didn't celebrate people who worked hard. We celebrate people who had money. We need to fix that. It's a foundational problem. If we don't fix that, then we can't fix anything, because that is what technology is, just an enabler of anything that we see. And I honestly speaking, is scary. I'm worried about our young generation, because you see, the truth and honestly speaking is that, it has gotten worse and much worse. You think that we've seen something, we've not seen anything, And the funniest thing is that Nigerians are amongst the smartest people in the world. Whenever we go out there, we marvel the world about how creative we can be. But you see, when you can use that creativity to make money in a short time, it makes more sense now, don't you think? Sharp, 1, 2, money, they flow. That's how people think, But I think that if we had the values right, and also if we had a system that encourages hard work, from government to even private institutions, where we reward people for doing the right things, we encourage people to do well, if we had, a lot around us, and this is not just a Nigerian problem, it's a societal problem, but Nigeria is a bit more, much more obvious, because first off, the economy is tough, people are suffering. And so there's always this desire for survival. And of course, naturally, if you find the easiest way, you probably would take it. And then they also have other challenges around, things not working out right. Some people work hard and it did not work for them, okay? And of course, we're talking about government policies. There have been some policies that have been launched that, some people's hard work just ended, just like that, and people ask themselves, so why am I even bothering? You have cases of, innocent people being arrested by law enforcement. There are just so many issues that kind of pushes people who want to do right to chase another method. But I think that that's the only solution, really. It is when we solve that problem that we will see improvements elsewhere. But for the fruits that we're seeing, like cybercrime and the likes, I think first off, to manage the situation, we need a lot of education. First, for the average individual. So for example, phishing and scamming are so prevalent because many people are unaware, or many people are also looking for get-rich-quick schemes. So somebody promises you that, just do this and you make money like this, so you're getting 100% return in just 3 months. People want to make money quickly and they jump at it. Or in some cases, people are unaware of how to safely use technology tools. And so they can be victims of hackers and scammers, So a lot of education needs to go in. And then we also need to have a system where we can actually catch these criminals. I can tell you for a fact, many of the cyber criminals are even getting bolder. They are bold because nobody can catch them in their mind. It's like, Nigerian police, forget. you know. And unfortunately, they are right to a large extent because the average officer doesn't know how to use technology. So the question is, if they cannot be caught, then they get bolder. So we need to also develop systems of detection and, you know, prevention and, you know, using the same technologies to also help us to identify and also curb this. We need to be able to, of course, there have been a lot, EFCC has been announcing a lot of, you know, these cyber criminals or suspects being arrested. We need more of that. And I hope there are real cases, they go to courts and, you know, they are actually punished. You know, if we have more of that, at least that can help, but we need to fix the foundational problems. And honestly, I don't know the quick answer for that. Thank you.
All right, but you give it a good shot. So our audience, I mean, if you have any questions or comments or contribution, we just have a few more minutes to round up this session. We'll be happy to take, you know, if you have any questions, just simply raise your hand. I will be happy to call you up. But Dr. Amina, let me ask you around, you know, how, because you mentioned about the AI center. I know that the cybersecurity center, I know there's a lot that happened with government side in trying to build capacity, you know, even though many will say that that is still in a very small cluster.
Yeah.
How do we ensure that we take this national, and how do we ensure that we build more capacity for our people to be able to compete globally?
So I think it's all about partnerships. A center for AI in Abuja would not serve over 200 million people. So if government can, it's very difficult for me to speak on panel sessions, right? Because I'm in between what I believe, and then I'm also in between what I should say as government. And funny enough, CFA, today is the first time that I'm having an interview with you for all the years, for all the 5 years that I've worked within the ecosystem and with you. So if we can scale up some of these trainings by creating partnerships, so if we can have ORE and many OREs out there that are doing different capacity buildings within the country, you know, partner with them to see how we can scale it up in all the geopolitical regions. And while looking through the symposium, the synopsis you sent to us, right, and specifically on the emerging technologies, you know, we put a lot of emphasis on the technology. Also equally important, you know, in being able to harness the potential of actual emerging technologies is soft skills, right? So we need to also build a lot of soft skills in problem solving, critical thinking, communication, collaboration. So sometimes some of the things that you see out there is because people don't know. I am a typical example. I'm a not blowing my thumb, but I'm an all distinction student. But when I went to the UK to start my PhD, I was almost going mad because research is not at my core. All I know is to sit down, have lecture delivered to me. I go and read beyond my lectures, and then I pass my courses. I make all my first classes and I leave. It was a huge struggle for me in the first year. If I tell you that I was clinically depressed, it might not be possible. So being able to build those soft skills is also critically important. We can't shy away from it. I love the idea of celebrating champions. So while I was at OIE, I think one of the things that was really not visible and was not done enough is we were not really talking about, government was not celebrating Andela, Flutterwave, Paystack, you know, who go host. We've not had an opportunity to really create a profile and even already people that are doing, you know, good within the sector so that others can aspire to be like them. So best way we can do it is everything that we've discussed here, the challenges that we have. If we can only identify what our stakeholder role is and allow the other person to also have their own stakeholder roles and collectively work together. I would really like to take this opportunity to speak a little bit about the child and parent cyber safety topic that was discussed. Being a parent, right? I've struggled with that a lot. So yes, we can't stop our children from using these technologies, but I think I like the idea of saying that it's our values that Toba said, right? he said it's our values that really need to change. So as parents or children or siblings or whatever, it's those same values of, can we set standards for what our kids can do or can't do? So online, you can sit down with your kids and come up with that. And also teaching them how to keep their personal information private. So we always teach our kids, don't wear this, don't go out with this covered. So it's all those kind of things that we need to continue to inculcate in them, encourage them to also make it open, so that whenever they need to have a conversations, you're always there. You see, so all those values that you would normally teach your child, even outside the cyberspace, are things that you still need to bring together. And also teach them about even the internet crimes. So I've worked with the EFCC for 14 years, but I've been a victim of 419. Someone called me, yes, good, I can see Toba laughing, yes. So I've gone through a series of trainings on these. I've gone through a series of trainings on, cyber safety, locally, internationally, while I was at the EFCC. But I think 2 years ago, someone called me, and it really sounded like the voice of someone I know, and I was swapped. Somebody took my 250,000 just like that. So telling them about these internet crimes are also very important. Telling them that, there's internet love fraud, there's phishing, there's impersonation, there's all these things. So we can't just take away, we can't just escape it. In this digital age that we're in, we have to just keep learning. We have to encourage lifelong learning from the parents, from the kids, and conversations needs to be happening even much more. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, Seth, I just wanted to add something to that, just to give my example.
Okay, we have 10 minutes to go though.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll try to be very short. While I was in school, okay, I needed a computer. And I asked my dad for a computer. My dad actually could give me a computer. My dad went to ask his friend, who was a professor in Faculty of Education, and that one said that he should not mind me that I use computer to play. That was the conclusion of the matter. I was fortunate enough that my mom had mercy on me. And it's the same, the first laptop my mom got is why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So the point I'm trying to raise is that sometimes parents don't know any better. And when they don't know any better, they would work with what they know. And the truth is that our children of tomorrow need to access this technology. And I agree absolutely with what the doctor has said. We definitely need to train our children. There's a lot of risk, but there's a lot of reward as well. And once we get the foundations right, then hopefully we can actually get them to benefit from technology as well. Thank you, CFO.
Okay, thank you very much. Joseph, who's supposed to be the lead paper presenter, didn't make it, but I just want to read the first paragraph and the last paragraph of his paper, and then I will take the final statement, because the final statement is the final question ties around what he said in his paper. It says by 2030 there will be a global shortage of more than 85 million tech workers, representing 8.5 trillion in lost annual revenue, according to the US-based management consulting firm Ferry. Building the technology talent gap and incentivizing those who are already in the tech space in Nigeria is a great place to start. That is the introduction, right? In the conclusion, he says, the internet will only work for all in a society that prioritizes equity over equality to ensure that the resources for learning and working are available to all, irrespective of social status. And that will make me ask you the very last questions. Looking at what Joseph said, how can we raise, or how can we develop more workforce that are internet ready? I'd like each of you to take this question in your own thoughts, for the next 1 minute or possibly 2 minutes maximum. Thank you. Toba, you want to go first?
Okay, so the question is that how can we get the workers to become more technology, get access to technology and not use this technology, right? So the thing is this, first we have to see, there has to be an incentive, right? So why would anybody want to do it? Government, I mean, ideally it should be clear to government. But I think that the private sector will do a lot more and can achieve more success because, like Dr. Amina mentioned earlier, you know, even if government creates innovation centers, how many can they create? How many people can have access to that? But imagine when we have, you know, private entities, you know, doing a lot with, you know, the social groups as well. But then, I mean, the way I imagine it is that if I think there's also still a foundational problem with the way we do business in Nigeria, right? First, we are not very collaborative. Secondly, we only think about short-term goals or short-term benefits, okay? So what I can imagine is that when we start thinking about the long term, okay, once businesses start realizing that for me to continue to make more and even to make times 2, times 3, times 4, times 100 of what I'm doing in this space, I need to create a demand. And creating the demand means you have to educate more people. You have to get more people online. You have to make them understand why they should be online, okay? We all have to come together and be a part of that success. One of the things I've seen that the US companies do, like the Googles, the Amazons and the likes, they come together, they form a consortium, okay? Because they have the same interest and they actually create something that benefits everyone because they know they would all benefit from it at the end of the day. So I think that if stakeholders can come together, contribute together, have the same goal of helping to empower Nigerians and get them online, to go a long way. What saddens me is that many times we have foreign companies come to do this for us. Google came at one time to give free internet. You know, why don't we have free internet in Nigeria? Why don't we have, you know, internet hubs that people can easily have access to internet? You know, things like that go a long way. Once we are able to make drop the barrier of entry, we can make it easier for the average person to get access to internet and technologies. I think that will go a long way. And I think that the private sector has a lot of work to do with that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Toba. Dr. Amina?
Okay. So your question was, sorry, I was a bit distracted. So your question was, I just want to make sure. Can you just...
Building capacity of young Nigerians to leverage digital economy.
Okay, so we actually, because we're now in the digital age, we have no option, you know. But to, you know, even in our conversations that we're having, we're saying parents should have, you know, they need to build their capacity, the children as well. So everyone, we need to embark on lifelong learning, right? And that means learning and relearning. And of course, the internet is an enabler for capacity building. And government, I would say if government would focus on just a few, for me, even if it's one policy that can make a huge difference, is very important. So policies that would come up to provide incentives to create demand and then also supply, so that there would be a balance. So sometimes when we say creating the supply, we mean building the capacity. Yeah. Building the capacity. Sometimes when we say building capacity, it's all about the supply. But when there is demand, automatically the capacity, the individuals would go out there and create and build their own capacities by themselves. So when CFA, you mentioned that government is not aware that a lot of our talent is being taken out of Nigeria. Government is quite aware, actually. A number of government is quite aware. So why are they moving out? So those that even have skills are going out because there's not a lot of opportunities here. So you have all these technology skills, you are good in AI, artificial intelligence and all that, but you can hardly see a space where you can utilize those skills effectively, right? So that would make you, so balancing between creating the supply and demand, I think is very core, and making sure that you have better access to infrastructure, such as power, internet, and a number of others. So yes, actively implementing policies from our side and then collectively working together. And I would say we just generally need to use our internet more wisely so we can build capacity ourselves. Thank you.
All right, Loco, thanks a lot. Orelua, let's hear from you. We just have a very short time now.
Okay, so I think that's it's important to leverage on research. Like, why is technology important? Yes, we know it's all around us, but then also making the business case for it. Why is it important that businesses are using technology strategically? Why is it that how does technology contribute towards maybe a more equitable country? There are ways that technology can definitely do this. Technology is a tool anyway, so it depends on how you use it. But I think definitely putting more into research, and saying, oh, for every Naira you spend in, this infrastructure or capacity building, on average, it tends to yield this amount of Naira or dollars in terms of profits. I think that is a very powerful incentive. It's a global world that we live in. So our children are likely not going to work here as it is. They're not competing just against Nigerians, but against the world. So, oh, and here comes my son. So,
you followed us here.
So it's very important that we're able to make sure that we build those skills, among young people. They will build it for themselves anyway. But I think it's very important that we pay attention to what kind of country it is that we have, what kind of country is it that, what kind of country and environment is this that, okay. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can, but we're out of time.
Okay, all right. So it's very important to make sure that we have a country that is a place where people want to stay. I mean, lots of people are leaving. We all know that. And if we're building all this capacity is only going to go out. So we need to make sure that we're also paying attention to make sure that we have health systems that work, education that works, security for everyone. Otherwise, all this capacity we're building is going to come, to naught.
Yeah. Thank you. And that means that they can possibly escape to the next city in Nigeria, that seventh state called Canada. Thank you very much to my panel members for your time this afternoon. Thank you, audience, for listening. We've all heard, right? It's an ecosystem, right? To build capacity, to deepen the digital economy, to ensure that we get more Nigerian products out there, to be a country that earns and gives value and not just consume. The stakeholders include government, academia, private sector, civil society, NGOs, everyone needs to come together because it's an ecosystem and it's a responsibility. Honestly, if we miss this last trend, I don't know what else we can do as a country or as a continent, right? We just need to find ways to ensure we position our people, we develop capacity, we train them, so that they can become, more, digitally savvy citizens of the world. So on that note, we just have about 1 minute left. I'd like to thank Dr. Amina for her time this afternoon. And Doc, don't worry, when the time is right, we will do a no holds barred interview. But for now, I know that you'll done some of my questions, but thank you for your time this afternoon, Doc. Thank you, Toba Albani, CEO Hugo host. Thank you, Aroluwa, for all the work that you have done, you keep doing for girls and women around tech. And thank you to our audience. Thank you for staying with us this afternoon. If you weren't here, this session wouldn't have held. And thank you to the organizers of the 2021 IGF. So on that note, bye everyone. Thank you. Thank you everyone. Bye. Cheers.
Hello?